The first lie I ever told Adrian Blackwood saved my life before I even knew his name. At 8:47 on a Friday night, I was standing under the gold chandeliers of Astor Hall with a silver tray balanced on my palm, pretending my hands were not shaking hard enough to make the champagne tremble. The room smelled like expensive perfume, polished marble, and money so old it never had to introduce itself. Women in silk laughed softly beside men in tailored suits. Diamonds flashed every time someone lifted a glass. And there I was, Emily Carter, 25 years old, wearing a black server's uniform that pinched at the collar, counting the minutes until my shift ended and I could go back to my tiny apartment in Queens where no one expected me to smile. I had almost convinced myself I was invisible. Then I saw Ryan Pierce walk through the main doors. My breath stopped halfway up my throat. He looked the same as he had 3 months ago when I finally blocked his number. Perfect blonde hair. Navy suit. That bright, polished smile people trusted because they had never seen what happened when it disappeared. 2 men followed behind him, not security exactly, but close enough to make my stomach turn cold. Ryan's eyes moved across the ballroom with patient certainty, like he already knew I was there and was only enjoying the moment before I realized it too. I turned too fast. The tray tilted. Crystal rims touched with a small, frightened sound. I caught it before anything fell, but a woman nearby gave me a look sharp enough to cut glass. "Careful," she whispered, as if carelessness was the worst thing a girl could be. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to vanish. Instead, I stepped backward through the crowd, keeping my eyes on Ryan as he moved closer. 10 feet. 8. 6. He smiled when he saw me. Not a surprised smile. A claimed one. My pulse pounded in my ears. The string quartet kept playing like the world had not narrowed to a single exit I could not reach. I backed into someone. Not bumped. Collided. My shoulder hit a solid chest, and a hand steadied my elbow before I could stumble. Warm. Calm. Controlled. I should have apologized and moved away. I should have kept running. But Ryan was almost there, and panic made a decision my mind was too scared to make. I turned, grabbed the stranger's hand, and held on like I had known him all my life. "Please," I whispered, barely moving my lips. "Pretend you're my boyfriend." The man looked down at our joined hands first. His skin was pale against the black cuff of his shirt, a thin line of ink curling from beneath his left sleeve across his wrist like a secret. Then his eyes lifted to mine. Gray, quiet, dangerous in a way that did not need to raise its voice. For one terrible second, I thought I had made the worst mistake of my life. Then the corner of his mouth curved. "Only if you don't let go," he said. Ryan stopped so suddenly that the man behind him nearly stepped into his back. The stranger shifted closer to me, not pulling, not trapping, just standing beside me with a kind of stillness that made the room change temperature. Conversations softened. Faces turned. Someone whispered a name I did not catch, but I felt it move through the crowd like a warning. Ryan's smile faded around the edges. "Emily," he said, his voice too smooth. "I've been looking for you." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The stranger answered for me. "Then you can stop looking." His thumb rested lightly over my knuckles, a small, steady pressure. "She's with me." Ryan's eyes flicked from my face to his, and for the first time since I had known him, I watched uncertainty pass through him. "And you are?" he asked, trying to sound amused. The stranger smiled again, but this time no warmth reached his eyes. "Adrian Blackwood." The name landed like a glass dropped on marble. Around us, people looked away too quickly. Even the air seemed to know him. I didn't. Not yet. All I knew was that I had grabbed the wrong man in a room full of strangers, and somehow, everyone else looked more afraid than I was. Ryan Pierce had never looked small to me before. In every memory I had of him, he filled the doorway, the sidewalk, the space between my ribs and the air I needed to breathe. But standing 3 feet away from Adrian Blackwood, under the glittering chandeliers of Astor Hall, Ryan suddenly looked like a boy wearing his father's confidence. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to the people around us, searching for someone who would laugh, someone who would make this feel normal again. No one did. The room had shifted around Adrian the way traffic shifts around a motorcade. Not loud. Not obvious. Just instinctive. Men lowered their voices. Women turned their shoulders away. A waiter near the bar froze with a bottle of champagne tilted over a glass, bubbles rising and spilling over the rim because even he had forgotten to move. I felt every inch of my hand inside Adrian's. I felt the smooth skin of his palm, the quiet strength of his fingers, the brush of that dark tattoo disappearing under his cuff. He did not squeeze. He did not pull. He simply held on like letting go had never been an option. Ryan forced a laugh. It sounded thin. That is funny, he said. Emily never mentioned a boyfriend. Adrian turned his head slightly toward me, and for one strange second, I saw amusement touch his eyes. Not kindness. Not exactly. More like he had found the only interesting thing in a room full of expensive boredom. Then Emily is better at keeping secrets than you are, he said. My heart tripped. Ryan's face drained of color so quickly I almost missed it. Secrets. The word moved between them like a closed door with something breathing behind it. I knew Ryan had money. I knew his family owned buildings, restaurants, and half the kind of favors people never wrote down. But I had never heard anyone speak to him like that. Not even his father. Ryan stepped closer, then stopped when two men in dark suits appeared behind Adrian as silently as shadows. They did not touch anyone. They did not need to. One was tall with silver at his temples. The other wore an earpiece and watched the room with empty patience. Adrian did not look back at them. He did not have to. This is personal, Ryan said, his smile gone now. Emily and I need to talk. I found my voice in pieces. No, we do not. It came out quiet, but it came out. Adrian's thumb paused over my knuckles. A small stillness. A small reward. Ryan's eyes snapped to me, sharp with disbelief. I had said no before, but never in front of witnesses. Never with my hand inside the hand of a man everyone else feared. You are confused, Ryan said softly. You have had a long night. My throat tightened. That was how he did it. Calm voice. Public smile. Words that made me sound fragile even when I was fighting to stay upright. But before shame could pull me backward, Adrian stepped in front of me just enough to block Ryan's view. She said no. 3 words. Low. Even. Final. The string quartet kept playing, but I could not hear the melody anymore. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I could hear the tiny crackle of a microphone near the stage. I could hear Ryan breathing through his nose like he was trying not to lose something he thought belonged to him. Then Adrian leaned closer to him, speaking so quietly I almost missed it. And you should be very careful about mistaking her politeness for permission. Ryan looked at me one last time. Not with love. Not with regret. With calculation. Then he adjusted his cuffs, stepped back, and smiled for the room. Enjoy your evening, he said. Both of you. He walked away, but the cold place in my stomach did not thaw. Because Adrian did not let go. Because his men did not move. Because when I tried to pull my fingers free, his hand closed just enough to stop me. I looked up at him, suddenly remembering that safety borrowed from a stranger still had a price. Thank you, I whispered. I can leave now. Adrian studied my face, then the place where Ryan had disappeared into the crowd. His smile faded completely. No, he said. You cannot. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood him. The ballroom was too bright. The music was too soft. My heart was still moving too fast from seeing Ryan walk away with that polished smile that never meant anything good. I stared at Adrian Blackwood and waited for him to correct himself, to say he was joking, to release my hand and return to whatever kind of life men like him lived before frightened servers crashed into them under chandeliers. He did none of those things. He only watched me with those quiet gray eyes, as if he could hear every panicked thought before I shaped it into words. I am grateful, I said. Carefully, because gratitude felt safer than anger. Really. But I have a subway to catch, and my shift is not even over. His gaze moved to the tray I had abandoned on a nearby table, then to the room around us. Your shift ended the second you said you were mine. Heat rushed to my face, not from romance, not from anything soft, but from the terrifying weight of how many people had heard me lie. I did not say that. No, he said. You said I was your boyfriend. His mouth curved faintly. In this room, that is more dangerous. I pulled my hand again. This time he let go. The sudden absence of his touch should have made me feel free. Instead, I felt exposed, like a door had opened behind me and cold air had rushed in. I wrapped my arms around myself and glanced toward the exit. Ryan was gone, but I could still feel him somewhere beyond the gold walls, waiting for the story to crack. Adrian stepped beside me, not blocking me, but close enough that his voice did not need to rise. There are 3 families in this hotel tonight who would enjoy proving I can be used as a costume. I blinked. A costume. A name you put on when you were scared. His eyes sharpened. If you walk out alone now, everyone learns I played along because a stranger asked nicely. That makes me look careless. It makes you look available. And it gives Pierce permission to return. The last sentence found the bruise beneath my ribs where fear lived. I hated that he saw it. I hated more that he was right. So what are you saying? My voice sounded small, and I despised that too. Adrian looked past me toward the balcony doors, where rain had begun to tap against the glass, turning the city lights into blurred gold. I am saying your lie became public. Public lies require public endings. That sounds like a threat. It is an explanation. Those can sound the same coming from men who are used to being obeyed. For the first time, something in his expression changed. Not anger. Interest. Like I had stepped out from behind my fear and surprised him. One of his men approached, the older one with silver at his temples, and leaned close enough to speak without looking at me. Car is ready, sir. Car. The word made my pulse jump again. I am not getting into a car with you. Adrian turned fully toward me. He was tall enough that the chandelier light cut shadows beneath his cheekbones, but his voice stayed low, almost patient. Then stay here and explain to Ryan Pierce why the most dangerous man in the room suddenly decided you were not worth protecting. The sentence hit harder than it should have. Not because it was cruel, but because it was clean. Honest in a way Ryan never was. Ryan wrapped control in concern. Adrian placed danger on the table and let me look at it. I swallowed, tasting champagne and fear in the back of my throat. For how long? I asked. His eyes dropped to my shaking fingers, then lifted again. For tonight. And after tonight? After tonight, we decide what story keeps you breathing easiest. I should have walked away. I should have called someone, though there was no one to call who could have stood between me and the kind of people who made ballrooms go silent. Instead, I looked across Astor Hall at the guests pretending not to stare, at the staff pretending not to whisper, at the exits that suddenly felt a mile away. Then Adrian held out his hand again. Open palm. No force. Just a choice that did not feel like much of a choice at all. Emily, he said, and my name sounded different in his mouth, steadier than it had in mine. For tonight, you are not pretending anymore. I looked at his hand, at the ink curling from his cuff, at the strange calm he carried like a weapon he never had to use. Then I placed my hand back in his. The moment I placed my hand in Adrian Blackwood's, the ballroom stopped belonging to me. Not that it ever had. I had only been there to carry glasses, refill smiles, and disappear before anyone remembered my face. But walking beside him through Astor Hall was a different kind of invisibility. People saw me now. They saw too much. Their eyes moved from my black uniform to his tailored suit, from my trembling fingers to his calm hand, from the cheap flats on my feet to the men in dark jackets falling into formation behind us. Nobody asked where he was taking me. Nobody asked if I wanted to go. That frightened me more than Ryan ever had in public, because silence from powerful people has a sound, and that night it sounded like permission. Adrian did not rush. He moved through the room with the slow certainty of a man who had never needed to hurry for anyone. The crowd opened before him. A senator I recognized from television stepped aside without finishing his sentence. A woman in diamonds looked down at her champagne like she had suddenly remembered something fascinating at the bottom of the glass. I kept my chin up because I could feel Ryan somewhere behind us, even though I could not see him. I refused to look back. Looking back felt like admitting I still belonged to the fear he had built in me. At the service hallway, Adrian paused while the older man with silver at his temples opened a private door. The music softened behind us, swallowed by thick walls and the low hum of hotel machinery. The hallways smelled like floor polish, rainwater, and the faint metallic breath of elevators. My hand slipped slightly in Adrian's. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Still with me?" he asked. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I had not been with anyone for a long time. Not really. Instead, I said, "I do not know where we are going. Away from the room where your fear has an audience." The answer should not have comforted me. It did. A freight elevator waited at the end of the hall, guarded by two men who straightened when they saw him. One pressed the button without being told. The doors opened with a tired groan, and we stepped inside. The space was plain steel, nothing like the golden ballroom above. In the reflection, I saw myself beside him for the first time. Pale face. Brown hair coming loose from its clip. Server's vest button wrong from when I had twisted it with nervous fingers. Beside me, Adrian looked almost unreal, tall and composed, black suit untouched by chaos, gray eyes fixed on the doors. The tattoo on his wrist showed again when he adjusted his cuff, a dark line of ink against pale skin. It was not decorative. It looked like a warning written in a language I did not know. "Are you a criminal?" I asked before courage could leave me. One of his men shifted. Adrian did not. His eyes met mine in the reflection. Would my answer change what happened upstairs? It would change whether I keep standing here. "No," he said quietly. "It would change what you tell yourself about why you stayed." The elevator descended. My stomach followed half a second behind. I hated that answer because it was not a lie. The doors opened into an underground garage washed in white fluorescent light. 3 black SUVs waited in a line, engines running, windows tinted so dark they reflected the ceiling lights like black water. A driver opened the rear door of the middle one. Cold air rolled over my skin. Somewhere above us, thunder moved across Manhattan. Adrian released my hand at last and stepped back, giving me space to choose, but everyone in the garage was watching the choice like it had already been made. I looked at the open door, then at him. "You said for tonight." I did. "And you keep your word?" For the first time, his face changed in a way I could not name. Something old passed through his eyes, something colder than sadness and softer than anger. My word is the only thing in my world that still has value. I believed him. I did not know why, and that scared me almost as much as not believing him would have. I climbed into the SUV. The leather seat was warm, the air smelled faintly of cedar and clean rain. Adrian entered beside me, leaving a careful distance between us. As the door closed, the garage, the hotel, and the life I understood disappeared behind dark glass. The convoy pulled out into the storm, and I realized I had not just left Astor Hall. I had crossed a line I could not see until it was already behind me. The city changed behind the tinted glass. Manhattan's bright edges softened into streaks of gold and red, traffic lights bleeding across the rain-slick streets like watercolor. I sat with my hands folded in my lap because I did not know what else to do with them. My uniform smelled faintly of champagne and lemon polish. My pulse still had not learned the difference between danger and rescue. Adrian sat beside me, angled toward the window, one arm resting on the door, his tattooed wrist half hidden beneath a white cuff. He had not touched me since the garage. He had not asked questions. Somehow, that made the silence heavier. In Ryan's car, silence always came before correction, before blame, before the careful words that made everything my fault by the end of the ride. Adrian's silence was different. It watched the exits. It counted cars. It listened to things I could not hear. I looked at the driver, then at the mirror, then at the black SUV ahead of us and the one behind. "Is this how you always travel?" I asked, because my mouth needed proof I still controlled something. Adrian did not look away from the rain. "When I have something valuable in the car." My throat tightened. "I am not valuable to you. Tonight you are." The answer was too calm to be flattering, too practical to be kind. I turned toward him. "Because of Ryan." His eyes shifted to mine. In the passing streetlights, they looked silver, then gray, then almost black. "Because of what Ryan thought you heard." Because of who saw you with me. Because fear makes careless men ambitious. I stared at him, trying to understand the shape of the trap I had stepped into. You speak like this is normal. For me, it is. For me, it is not. Something in his expression softened, but only slightly, like a locked door admitting there was light on the other side. I know. That quiet answer did more to unsettle me than any threat could have. I looked down at my wrist, at the faint marks Ryan's fingers had left earlier when he found me near the service entrance before the gala started. I had covered them with makeup and a long sleeve. I thought nobody would notice. Adrian's gaze followed mine. I pulled my hand back fast, tucking it beneath my other arm. Do not, I said. Do not look at me like that. Like what? Like you are deciding what to do about something that is not yours. The car went still around my words. Even the driver seemed to breathe quieter. Adrian turned fully then, not closer, just present in a way that made the warm leather seat feel too small. You are right, he said. I blinked. I had expected argument. Control. A lesson dressed as concern. I am. Your pain is not mine. Your fear is not mine. Your body is not mine. Your choices are not mine. His voice remained low, even almost cold. But the man who followed you into my evening made the mistake of placing his problem in my path. I should have felt safer. Instead, anger rose because fear needed somewhere to go. So this is about pride. Partly. He did not flinch from the ugly word. And partly because when you asked for help, you were shaking so hard you could barely stand. I have ignored many things in my life, Emily. I did not ignore that. My name again. Steady. Careful. I turned back to the window before he could see my eyes burn. We crossed the Queensboro Bridge, the East River below us black and restless under the rain. By the time the convoy turned through iron gates in a quiet neighborhood I did not recognize, my hands had gone cold. The house beyond the gate was not a mansion from a fairy tale. It was stone, glass, and shadow, modern and severe, with warm light glowing behind tall windows. Men stood beneath the covered entrance. Not many. Enough. The SUV stopped. Adrian stepped out first, then waited under the rain-dark sky while the driver opened my door. He did not offer his hand this time. I appreciated that more than I wanted to. Inside, the house smelled like cedar, coffee, and old books. No loud music. No shouting. No chaos. Just polished floors, quiet men, and the strange feeling that every object had been placed exactly where it belonged. Adrian led me into a room with dark shelves and a fireplace burning low behind glass. He removed his jacket and laid it over the back of a chair. The tattoo near his wrist showed fully now, black ink wrapping around pale skin like a vow. 3 rules, he said. My spine stiffened. I do not belong to you. That is not one of them. I looked at him, caught off guard. He continued. First, you do not run into the rain with no phone, no plan, and a man like Pierce looking for you. Second, you do not lie to me again unless the lie keeps you alive. Third, when your phone rings, you do not answer Ryan Pierce. As if the universe wanted to prove him right, my phone began vibrating in my pocket. The sound was small, ordinary, terrifying. I pulled it out with numb fingers. Ryan's name lit the screen. Adrian's eyes dropped to it, then returned to mine. He did not reach for it. He did not command me. He simply said, "Now you choose what kind of night this becomes." I stared at Ryan's name until the letters blurred. The phone kept vibrating in my palm, small and stubborn, like a trapped insect. In Adrian's quiet study, that ordinary sound felt louder than the rain against the tall windows, louder than the low fire behind the glass, louder than my own breath. I could answer. I could prove I was not some frightened girl waiting for powerful men to decide where I stood. I could tell Ryan to leave me alone and mean it this time. But my thumb would not move. Because memory has a body. It lives in the wrist that still aches when the weather turns cold. It lives in the shoulder that rises before a door opens. It lives in the stomach that tightens when a familiar name lights up a screen. Adrian watched me, but he did not reach for the phone. That mattered. More than I wanted it to. He always calls twice, I whispered. Then let it ring twice, Adrian said. The call ended. Silence fell. For 1 second, I almost smiled at the ridiculous relief of surviving a sound. Then the phone started again. Same name. Same pressure behind my ribs. I closed my eyes and pressed decline before I could lose courage. The screen went dark. My hand shook so badly the phone slipped from my fingers and landed on the rug without a sound. I hated that too. I hated every visible piece of fear Ryan had left behind. I am not weak, I said, though nobody had accused me. Adrian's voice came from across the room, lower than the rain. I know. I looked up too fast. Do you? Weak people do not ask a stranger for help in a room full of witnesses. Weak people do not say no when they have been taught it will cost them. Weak people do not stand there shaking and still choose not to answer. The words entered me slowly, like warmth reaching fingers I had not realized were numb. I turned away before my face could betray me. My sleeve had slipped up when I dropped the phone. I noticed too late. Adrian noticed before I did. His gaze stopped at my wrist and the room changed. Not dramatically. No raised voice. No sudden movement. Just a silence so controlled it frightened me more than anger. For faint marks circled my skin, hidden badly beneath makeup that had rubbed away during the night. I tugged the sleeve down. It is nothing, Emily. My name was not a command. It was a warning not to lie to myself. I said it is nothing. No, he said. You said the sentence people use when something has happened too often. My throat closed. I expected him to step closer, to inspect me like evidence, to ask questions I could not answer without falling apart. Instead, he took his black jacket from the chair and held it out without touching me. You are cold. I stared at it. The jacket looked expensive, heavy, impossible. I am fine. You are allowed to be fine inside something warm. The smallest sound left me. Not a laugh. Not a sob. Something broken between them. I took the jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders. It smelled like cedar, rain, and a clean kind of smoke from the fireplace. It swallowed my uniform, covered my shaking hands, and for the first time all night, I felt less on display. Adrian turned to the older man standing near the door. Ask Dr. Bell to come by. Female physician. No rush, no audience. My head snapped up. I do not need a doctor. Then you can tell her that when she arrives. She will listen better than I do. I should have been offended. I almost was. But the corner of his mouth moved, barely, and something in me loosened against my will. The phone buzzed again, but this time it was not a call. A message appeared on the screen where it lay on the rug. I did not pick it up. Adrian did. He glanced at the words, and whatever softness had reached his face disappeared. What does it say? I asked. He looked at me, then turned the screen so I could read it myself. Come outside, Emily. I know who you are with. And I know what is in your pocket. My blood went cold. Slowly, with fingers that no longer felt like mine, I reached into the pocket of my server's vest. Something small and hard pressed against the lining. I pulled it out. A black flash drive rested in my palm. Adrian's eyes locked on it. The fire cracked softly behind us. Emily, he said, very quietly, where did you get that? I could not remember breathing. The flash drive looked too small to matter, a plain black piece of plastic resting in my palm, light enough to forget, heavy enough to change the air in Adrian Blackwood's study. I stared at it as if it might explain itself. I do not know, I whispered. I swear I do not know. Adrian did not move toward me. He looked at the flash drive, then at my face, and something in his eyes told me he believed the fear before he believed the words. Think, he said. Not harsh. Precise. At the hotel. Who touched you? The question pulled me backward through the night in broken pieces. Gold light. Champagne glasses. Ryan by the doors. My shoulder hitting strangers as I tried to escape. A man near the terrace, gray suit, red tie, his hand brushing my vest when he apologized for almost knocking over my tray. Someone bumped into me, I said slowly. Near the balcony doors. He said sorry. I thought he was drunk. Adrian's jaw tightened. The older man by the door stepped closer. Description. White male, maybe late 40s. Gray suit. Red tie. He had a small cut above his eyebrow. The room went silent in a way that made my skin prickle. Adrian looked at the older man. Victor Hale. The name meant nothing to me, but it meant something to everyone else. The older man took out his phone and turned away, speaking too quietly for me to catch more than fragments. Garage. Cameras. Guest list. North exit. My fingers closed around the flash drive until the edges pressed into my skin. What is on this? Adrian looked back at me. Information men lie for. Run for. Betray for. That is not an answer. It is the safest answer I can give you before I know who else knows you have it. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Ryan knows. Adrian's eyes dropped to my phone on the rug. Ryan thinks he knows. He said he knows what is in my pocket. Because someone told him you were the carrier. I am not a carrier. My voice broke on the last word. I was serving drinks. I know. No, you do not. The anger came so fast it startled me. I stood there in his jacket, in his beautiful study, holding a secret I had never asked for, and suddenly I was tired of men turning my fear into strategy. You keep saying you know, but you do not know me. You do not know what it took me to leave Ryan. You do not know what it feels like to hear his name and become smaller before you can stop yourself. You do not know what it means to spend months practicing normal so nobody asks why you flinch. Adrian was still. Completely still. The fire reflected in the glass behind him, turning his outline dark and gold. Then tell me, he said. 2 words. No demand inside them. Just space. That made it worse. My eyes burned. I looked away first. No, he nodded once, as if no was an answer he respected. Then I will tell you something. Ryan Pierce is not just your former boyfriend. His family launders money through restaurants, charity boards, real estate funds, anything clean enough to stand in daylight. Tonight, he came to Astor Hall because Victor Hale was supposed to pass him that drive. The room seemed to tilt. But Victor gave it to me. Because he was scared. Or trapped. Or trying to make sure it reached someone Ryan could not easily touch once you grabbed my hand. I looked down at the black plastic again. My stomach turned cold. So when I asked you to pretend, I stepped into something already happening. Yes. And you knew. Adrian's silence lasted half a second too long. It was enough. I stepped back. You knew there was something wrong before we left the hotel. I suspected. And you brought me here anyway. His eyes sharpened, not with anger, but with something like regret held behind glass. I brought you here because outside that hotel, every exit belonged to someone else. My phone buzzed again on the rug. This time, Adrian did not pick it up. I did. A new message filled the screen. Bring the drive to the East Gate in 10 minutes or everyone learns what you did tonight. I stared at the words, confused and sick. What I did. Adrian came closer by 1 step, then stopped himself. Emily, listen to me. But I was already seeing it. How easy it would be. The poor server. The desperate ex-girlfriend. The girl in the wrong place, with the wrong man, holding the wrong evidence. Ryan did not need to drag me back. He only needed to make me look guilty enough that no one would ask why I was afraid. Outside, somewhere beyond the tall windows, a car rolled slowly past the iron gate, its headlights cutting through the rain like pale knives. Adrian turned his head toward the sound. His expression emptied. They are already here. The headlights slowed beyond the gate, then vanished behind the rain-dark hedges as if they had never been there at all. That made it worse. A visible threat gives your fear somewhere to point. An invisible one turns the whole house into a question. Adrian moved first, smooth and controlled, but the room changed with him. The older man at the door touched his earpiece and began speaking in short, quiet phrases. Lights along the driveway brightened. Somewhere deeper in the house, doors closed with soft, expensive clicks. No one ran. No one shouted. That frightened me more than panic would have. This was a place that knew what to do when danger arrived. I was the only thing in it that did not belong. Stay here, Adrian said. With him. He nodded toward the older man. I almost laughed. You cannot be serious. I am always serious when someone parks outside my gate after threatening a guest in my home. Guest. The word landed strangely. Not hostage. Not problem. Guest. I clung to it for half a second before anger pushed through. You said I had choices. You do. But only the ones you approve of. His eyes came back to mine, sharp and tired. No. Only the ones that do not hand you to Ryan Pierce in the rain. My phone buzzed again. I flinched before I could stop myself. Adrian saw it. So did everyone else. Shame burned hotter than fear. I picked it up from the rug, ready for another message, but the screen showed no name this time. Just an unknown number and a photo sent in silence. It was taken from outside the front gate. Through the rain-blurred image, I saw Adrian's driveway, the black iron bars, the warm windows of the house. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. Not the car. Not the shadows. A man near the side entrance, half hidden beneath the overhang, his hand on a small security panel. One of Adrian's men. The one with the earpiece from the garage. He was not looking outward. He was looking at the lock. Adrian, I said. He was already turning away. Not now. The man in the photo pressed something against the panel. A tiny red light changed to green. My voice came out louder than I knew it could. The side door. Adrian stopped. Everyone stopped. I held up the phone with both hands. He is opening the side door. For one breath, the study froze. Then Adrian crossed the room and took the phone, not from my hand, but from the air between us, careful even now. His eyes scanned the image. The temperature seemed to fall. He looked at the older man. Marcus. One word. The older man moved immediately, speaking into his earpiece as he left the study. Adrian did not follow. He stayed in front of me, his body angled between me and the door, listening. The house answered in quiet sounds. Footsteps. A low voice from the hall. A door closing. A command given without heat. No crashing. No chaos. Just control tightening around a mistake before it could become disaster. My knees went weak, and I reached for the back of the chair. Adrian saw that too. Of course he did. Sit down, he said softly. I shook my head. Do not start giving orders again. That was concern. It has the same voice. Something flickered across his face. Not amusement. Not anger. Recognition. As if my words had struck something old in him. The older man returned less than a minute later, rain shining on one shoulder of his dark coat. Side entrance is secure. Marcus has been escorted to the library. He had an outside phone and a duplicate access card. My hand tightened around the flash drive. He worked for you? Adrian did not look away from the older man. For 7 years. The answer was so quiet I almost missed the wound inside it. 7 years. Long enough to trust. Long. Enough to stop checking the shadow at your back. Adrian took the flash drive from the desk, where I had placed it without realizing, and closed his fingers around it. Ryan did not come here for Emily, the older man said. He came for you. Adrian's eyes shifted to me then. Something had changed. The calculation was still there. The danger was still there. But underneath it was something I had not seen before. Respect, maybe. Or the shock of being saved by someone he thought he was protecting. You noticed what my own people missed, he said. My laugh came out unsteady. I spent a long time learning how to read a room before it turned on me. His face softened so slightly most people would have missed it. I did not. That is a terrible skill to earn. It kept me alive. Outside, the rain kept striking the windows, soft and relentless. Adrian looked toward the gate, then back at me. Tonight, it kept me alive too. The words settled between us heavier than the storm. For the first time since Astor Hall, I did not feel like a mistake he was managing. I felt like a witness to the part of him no one else was allowed to see. Then my phone lit one last time. A message from Ryan appeared across the screen. You should not have warned him. The message stayed on the screen long after the phone stopped glowing in my hand. You should not have warned him. 6 words, and somehow Ryan had made saving a man sound like betrayal. My first instinct was to apologize, which terrified me more than the message itself. That was the thing about people like Ryan. They did not have to stand in the room to make you shrink. They planted their voice inside your head and waited for fear to finish the sentence. Adrian read the message over my shoulder without stepping too close. His expression did not change, but the silence around him hardened. He wanted you to feel responsible, he said. I looked at the screen until my eyes burned. It worked for a second. Only for a second. I hated how much comfort those 3 words gave me. Outside, the rain thinned against the windows, changing from a steady drumbeat to a soft whisper over the glass. Somewhere in the house, voices moved. Low and controlled. Marcus was no longer near the side door. Ryan was outside the gate. The flash drive sat on Adrian's desk now, sealed inside a small metal case his older man had brought in without a word. The night had become too large for me. Too many names. Too many secrets. Too many doors I had never meant to open. I took Adrian's jacket from my shoulders and folded it carefully over the back of the chair. The warmth left me at once. I should go, I said. Adrian looked at the jacket, then at me. Where? Home. Pierce knows your address. Then a hotel. He will check them. Then I will keep moving. My voice rose, not loud enough to be brave, but loud enough to be honest. That is what I did before you. I moved. I changed my route. I deleted messages. I smiled at work. I survived. Adrian stood very still. Surviving is not the same as being safe. Maybe not. But it is mine. The words surprised both of us. They came from somewhere deeper than fear, somewhere Ryan had not reached and Adrian had not earned. I expected him to argue. He did not. He walked to the desk, picked up my phone, and placed it in my palm. Then he took a black card from a drawer and set it beside my fingers. No flourish. No pressure. Just a number embossed in silver. A car will take you wherever you choose, he said. A woman from my legal team can meet you in the morning if you want protection filed through proper channels. Dr. Bell is still available if you choose to see her. None of that requires you to stay here. I stared at him. You are letting me leave? Something almost sad moved through his eyes. You were never mine to keep. The room went quiet around that sentence. It should have made everything simpler. It did not. I looked toward the hallway, toward the locked gates beyond the house, toward the city waiting wet and bright outside. Then I looked back at the man I had used as a shield and somehow found standing between me and a storm that had been coming long before I knew his name. You played along, I said. At first. His mouth softened, barely. At first. I picked up his jacket again. Not because I was cold this time, but because leaving it felt like leaving proof that the night had happened. You do not have to play my boyfriend anymore. Adrian's eyes dropped to the jacket in my hands, then to my face. The fireplace reflected behind him, gold against shadow, making him look less like a monster and more like a man who had forgotten what tenderness was supposed to cost. Emily, he said quietly, I stopped playing the moment you chose to warn me. My breath caught. Not because it was a promise. Because it was not. It was worse. It was the truth, laid carefully between us with no demand attached. Outside, another car rolled toward the front entrance, but this time it was his driver, waiting under the porch light to take me wherever I asked to go. I walked to the door, my fingers around the black card, his jacket folded over my arm. Before I stepped into the hall, I turned back once. Adrian had not moved. He stood in the study, surrounded by power, secrets, and the quiet wreckage of betrayal, watching me as if my choice mattered more than his control. For the first time in years, I believed it did.